Watchmen is officially over. HBO is not going to be pursuing a new season after the creator bows out. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who have mixed feelings about this. I'm a big fan of Watchmen. Now, I got my introduction into Watchmen from watching the movie, and then I went back and read the comic. It was a really, really long time ago. And Watchmen is a really, really great piece of intellectual property. A lot of people have been trying to figure out if they can do more with it. Apparently, there was like a sequel comic or something. But what this show did was not Watchmen. Like, it was about the Tulsa, Oklahoma attacks, and it was about like racial justice and cops. Cops wore masks. I admittedly did not watch it, but I saw this unfold, and I'll tell you the main reason I didn't watch it is because it seemed like a woke iteration that had nothing to do with Watchmen. I quite honestly didn't like. I saw the trailer. I started watching one of the episodes, and I was just like, I understand how they tried tying this social justice story to the Watchmen past, but it doesn't quite seem to make sense. And they may as well just made a new show. I think it's fair to say, to an extent, like at least someone tried something new. But apparently, well, it's not going to go anywhere. So here's what I want to do. I don't know exactly why Watchmen is over. However, I do think it's fair to say, get woke, go broke. Now, I can't definitively say the dude quit the show for these reasons, but Watchmen was one of these, it was another one of these bits of like, content where the critics love it. And they're screeching and praising about, there's talk about like racial justice. Dude, I think it's really cool if they're going to do a story talking about what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma back in the early 1900s. Or it was like 1930 something. And there was a lot of racial injustice. I'm down, but it's not Watchmen. So you end up getting this really low audience score. It's actually not that bad compared to a lot of the disparities we've seen. But again, it's another one of these stories where the tomato meter from the critics is really high and the audience not really digging it. And why is that the case? Well, I'll tell you this. Critics just say what they have to say because it's access journalism. They want to get advanced screenings. They want to toe the line for their bubble. And they all believe the same weird things. But I'll tell you this. We will read this story, but let me just say to anybody who's not familiar with cultural politics and what's happening, I will just tell you this. The media is typically in urban centers. They typically hire college grads, so they all have a very similar bubble. And they don't relate to the average American. So all of the critics seem to have the same opinions about most things when the audience really doesn't. And that's why you'll see movies like, I don't know if you guys ever saw the movie Death Wish. It's Bruce Willis. It's an old revenge film. It's like, his wife gets killed. He goes and buys some guns. He gets revenge. Typical, right? Audience loved it. I think the audience score was like 80 something. I went and saw it, had a good time. It's a popcorn flick. It was great. Bruce Willis is a rad dude. Loved it. Critics hated it. They called it a gun nut masturbation film. I'm sorry for using that word if you have kids. Listen, I try to be family friendly. But anyway, let's read the story. We'll see what's going on with HBO. USA Today reports HBO won't pursue second season of Watchmen after creator bows out. Watchmen won a loyal following and critical acclaim as the superhero comic series was adapted into a politically relevant drama about race and the criminal justice system. Let me just ask why? This is what I don't get, man. Why is everything a hand-me-down? Right now they're talking about whether or not James Bond could be a woman. I don't care for the most part. I'd actually, people have asked whether James Bond should be played by Idris Elba. And I'm like, that's a cool choice. I think Idris Elba's awesome. He was great in Thor. So I'm cool with that. Apparently there was some fake drama over the fact that Idris Elba's black and I guess James Bond's supposed to be white. I don't think anyone really cared about that. Now they're saying James Bond should be a woman. And I'm like, is James a woman's name? Because what is Janet Bond? Like, you're making a new character, man. I don't understand why every time they do something, it's got to be some kind of adaptation, some kind of swap or change, instead of just making new intellectual property. Like, that's what I don't understand, right? Listen, you want to do Watchmen. It's very simple. Watchmen has got Dr. Manhattan in it. I know he's in the show, I guess. But it's about something different. It's about vigilante justice. It's not about race relations. Ozymandias, it was kind of asking a moral question about, was it right to kill all these people? If you're not familiar with the story, I guess I'll spoil it for you. Ozymandias stages a fake alien invasion, uniting the U.S. and Russia, essentially averting World War III and nuclear holocaust. And the question is it morally justified to kill these millions of people or not? Rorschach, the character he's got, he's in this Watchmen show. There's like people who dress like him, I guess. He was a moral absolutist. He was kind of a cringy, weird dude, but people really liked him as a character. His attitude was basically never compromise, not even in the face of Armageddon. It is wrong to lie to people. He does not believe that you have the right to kill all these people, kill a person, and lie to them to justify your vision of a future. I kind of agree, right? Because the ends don't justify the means. And then you get Ozymandias, who's like, if you tell the truth, you'll undo this. That was an interesting concept. Which is right? Is there a scale? It asks that thought-provoking question. You might say to yourself, there is never justification for taking one life. And then you think about like total and nuclear annihilation of every life. And would you then take the Spock route of, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few? Well, this is something different. The Watchmen show ended up becoming some kind of like racial justice thing, talking about like cops wearing masks, which is more of like it really is in line with like mainstream social justice. The reviews come in bad, and now the show's flopping. Look, I'm not going to say, I think a lot of people really liked it. I don't know if the reason why the dude's leaving has anything to do with social justice, but I do feel like it was embroiled in controversy as much as many people liked it. My question is, why not make a new show? Why do you have to take existing IP, turn it into social justice? Why do you have to take a superhero, turn it into a woman or a person of color? Why can't you just give people their own heroes? That's what I never understood. So going back to the James Bond thing, I saw a friend of mine tweeting, like, excited that James Bond could be a woman. And I'm like, dude, I don't care if they make James Bond a woman. I think it would be weird to see a woman named James, but I'm sure there are women named James, so fine. You could argue that James Bond is a code name, fine. But my question is, at a certain point, aren't you going to get upset that the character you're being, like this iteration of James Bond is a hand-me-down? Like, we had James Bond for 60 years. Now that we're not as into it, now we'll give it to the women and the people of color. That is, I don't understand that. Some people like James Bond for what James Bond is. Let them keep their James Bond. And if you want a new spy, why can't they make new intellectual property with new characters, people of color, and women? I don't understand why they have to do this. And I'm sorry for getting wrapped up and not actually reading the story. So let's read the story. They say, but don't look for a second season of the drama, which wrapped up its 9-episode run last month, largely because creator Damon Lindelof isn't interested in doing it. HBO programming chief Casey Bloys told USA Today Wednesday that Lindelof, the co-creator of ABC's Lost, who also created HBO's The Leftovers, brilliantly took the graphic novel and just kind of broke it open and created a whole new world. You see what I'm saying? In which Regina King starred as a masked cop in Tulsa in 2019 when Robert Redford was president. It's a new show. It has nothing to do with Watchmen. So now you've basically taken the IP, and I feel like, here's how I feel. Maybe some fans feel this way. I feel like now the opportunity for a true sequel, show, or movie it's gone because you've effectively done this. This is what you've made, and now the show is essentially about racial justice. Had nothing to do with the original IP, doesn't ask those same questions. I think it's fair to say you can take IP and you can expand upon it. Maybe this dude was thinking, how can we ask similar thought-provoking questions? What can we tackle today that would kind of make people think about this? And, I think Watchmen, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was the comic was put out in the 80s when we were concerned about nuclear holocaust. Maybe that's what he was trying to do. Focus on a political issue today and make something of it. But that's just, in my opinion, look, Watchmen came out kind of as a different iteration of what DC Comics already had with Batman and the masks and all that stuff. And they addressed a political issue. Don't take Watchmen that people really like and turn it into something else, because then I feel like you're just giving people hand-me-downs. You know what, man? This is what I don't understand. I'm going to say it again. I would imagine social justice activists would actually be saying, can we get something new? Can you invest, the millions of dollars into a new intellectual property? They want to say it's really in Damon's thinking about what he wants to do. If there's an idea that excited him about another season, another installment, maybe like a Fargo, True Detective take on it, or he wants to do something different altogether, we're very proud of Watchmen. But what I'm most interested in, what Damon wants to do, the answer, nothing. Lindelof told USA Today this week that he's told the story he wants to tell and has no interest in a second season. I thought it ended with a cliffhanger. It ends with a cliffhanger. What do you mean he told the story? He didn't finish the story. He told the story he wants to tell. So no interest in a second season, though he's given my blessing to HBO should it want to pursue a new installment with another writer-producer. But Bloys concedes that's unlikely to happen. It would be hard to imagine doing it without Damon involved in some way. Sorry, fans, but the season-ending cliffhanger will likely never be resolved. So here's why I think this is a get woke, go broke. The dude is saying, I've told the story I want to tell, but they're saying it ended with a cliffhanger. And I got to admit, I didn't watch it because I started watching the first one and I really was not into it. The thing is, I was like, oh, cool, Watchmen, I'll watch this. And then I started watching it and I'm like, this is not Watchmen. I'm bored. It's cool if people like the story. I got no beef. If you liked Watchmen, check it out. So let me show you the reviews. 96% from the critics, but out of 6,763, 54% liked it, 46 didn't like it. I think it's fair to say a lot of fans of the original intellectual property were not happy with this weird new, this weird story. It has nothing to do with it barely has anything to do with it. I know they took the original characters, they adapted them and changed them, but it felt just different, And so anyway, I know a lot of people like it. If you like it, I guess I'm bummed for you. You're losing your show. Well, let me tell you the main point. I'll wrap this up because I do keep these segments a little shorter. Can we get new characters? No studio is willing to take the risk. I think that's the problem. So they just adapt old characters. Well, it's about time we just made new ones, man. I'll leave it there. You get the point. I personally think he's wrapping this up abruptly because of the controversy and the bad audience ratings. I know some people liked it. I don't know if they were making money or what the issue was. I know it's HBO, so it's subscription based. But if you were to ask me, leaving the show with a cliffhanger, claiming they finished it, I think it's fair to say the most likely circumstance is probably just not getting along with the directors or the company just didn't want to do it because there was a crappy working environment. But I do think the backlash from core fans played an issue. I think this dude was trying to figure out how they could do something similar to what Watchmen originally was, and it didn't work with the fans, and then it just becomes toxic. You know what I mean? So I'll leave it there. But I will mention one more thing before we go to the next segment. You may realize sound is different. I'm in a different place. I'm going to give you guys a bonus for those that made it through. Look at that wide shot. There's going to be a new show coming up soon. I will be recording in this studio. There's still a lot of design work that has to go into what's going on. A lot of trial and error. We'll figure it out. I got this little monitor screen for what I'm reading on. So stick around. Next segment's coming up in a few minutes, and I think this is it from now on. But I'll see you all in the next segment.